high-octane offense, pressure defense. It seems to be the brand that Danny White loves for his Tennessee athletic program so far. It's a winning recipe. Kim Caldwell was recently introduced as the 4th Lady Vols head basketball coach. The main question is she ready? And then later we'll get to Tennessee football, where we'll focus in on the linebacker unit, who seems to be embracing a bit of a new identity. We've got my co-pilot here with us and Jimmy Hyams. Jimmy, are we ready for our very first ever full disclosure show?
Yes, we're ready.
All
and
right.
We're excited.
We are so excited. Let's get into it. It's the Field Pass on Full Disclosure.
I will never be Pat Summitt. Nobody can. But I will strive every day to be somebody that she would be proud of.
Is she ready? I would say if we can base it, Jimmy, just off of her initial press conference introduction. It has to be yes. I would give her a solid A. You heard her speak as well. What was your initial takeaway?
Well, when I look at the hire, I was a bit surprised. Although Danny White is known for hiring up-and-coming coaches. Mm-hmm. He did it when he was at Buffalo. He kind of did it with Josh Heupel, too, with football. So he's not afraid to go in that direction. I did not think he was going to make a $3 million hire. He wasn't going to hire Don Staley, wasn't going to hire Kim Mulkey, wasn't going to hire Gino Auriemma. When you get past that, there are not as many marquee coaches that might be available. So he went after somebody that he thinks is on the rise, that will be a good recruiter, that plays an exciting brand of basketball. I was kind of reminded when I heard Danny White talk about him of Bruce Pearl when he was hired at Tennessee, because he came from Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and he ran an up-tempo style on offense. He pressed on defense, the same things that Kim Caldwell wants to do with the Lady Vols. It certainly worked for Bruce Pearl for his 6 years.
Yes.
I know it didn't end well, but for his 6 years, it was an exciting brand of basketball. And I think that's what Danny White is hoping that Kim Caldwell can bring.
And I think when we look back to her press conference, too, because there's nothing like a bad first impression, right? And we've seen plenty of those in the coaching realm where they go viral just because they're saying something that they think is going to hit and it kind of misses the mark. But I think Kim Caldwell had just the perfect blend of humor, being able to show her ambition, dedication, and vision for the Lady Vol program.
We're going to play an exciting brand of basketball. We want to play fast. We want to play up-tempo. We want to be the hardest playing team in the country.
The big question is she going to be ready for this type of challenge? And she said in the press conference that she didn't want to go anywhere where the standard and the expectations weren't high.
I've had a lot of opportunities in my career to look at jobs, and I was never interested in a job that did not have high expectations, did not have a loyal fan base, did not have a hungry crowd that wanted to pay attention to what was going on. And so I think that that is something that makes this program incredibly special.
And you can credit Pat Summitt for that, for the 8 national championships, for the multiple Final Four appearances. And so she brought it to a level that even though Holly Warlick had some success with 3 Elite Eights, that wasn't good enough. Kelly Harper in 5 years did not make an Elite Eight. Wasn't good enough. Neither one of them won enough. He's looking for somebody that can get it done. When you look at what Caldwell has done, she's 217-31 in 7 years. That's a remarkable record. However, it's at a lower level.
Yep.
6 years at a lower level than 1 year at Marshall. Now, she did beat Florida.
Yes, so a little bit of SEC experience.
Yeah, that's a big thumbs up right there. But she's got a challenge. What's going to be interesting to see where she goes, because there's a part of you that thinks, boy, the rebuilding could be tough because a lot of players could enter the transfer portal. On the flip side, rebuilding could be made quicker if you hit in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So we don't know where that's going to go in the first year. I do think the Lady Vols still have an iconic name and iconic brand to where you're going to attract some really good players. And let's face it, Pat Summitt didn't win 8 national championships with 2-star players.
No.
She got the best players in the country. She molded them together. She made them play defense. She made them rebound. Got just enough offense to get it done. So Tennessee's got to get better players. They've got to recruit better if they want to compete with South Carolina and LSU.
Yeah, and you mentioned it at the top too, just about her record and, really just highlighting that a winner is a winner. When we kind of look at her Division II experience a little bit in that Division I with Marshall, she did have 2 coaches of the Year honors, most recently Division I Rookie of the Year coach, a national title, 2 NCAA Final Fours, of course, both in the Division II levels. And she mentioned that she didn't need to be debriefed on the Pat Summitt legacy and history here, because she also, too, has a little bit of a connection of her own. She won the Pat Summitt Trophy at the Division II level, which goes to that National Coach of the Year. And part of that success is derived from her fast-paced offense, which Danny White, like we said at the top of the show, loves that, and he compared it to what you see inside Neyland Stadium.
In terms of prospective players in the future, it's a compelling and exciting style of play for fans. I think if you like what you're seeing in Neyland Stadium in terms of the amount of points we score, I think you're going to like what you see on the basketball floor with the offensive and defensive attacking competitive style of play.
You need to have an exciting brand. And let's face it, women's basketball right now is as popular as it's ever been, maybe more popular.
Yeah, 18.7 million views in the national title game.
Yes, and you can thank Caitlin Clark a lot for that. You can thank South Carolina for being undefeated, which led to that. So now Tennessee's got to fight its way into raising their level to play to where they're on national TV and they're in big games and they're in the spotlight. They were for many years under Pat Summitt, but that's faded. They haven't been to Final Four since 2008. So that's going to be it'll be a challenge to get back to that level, but I don't think it's insurmountable. And also, I think back to coaches that had come from lower levels that have succeeded. How about Billy Donovan? He was hired from Marshall. He goes to Florida. He wins 2 national championships. On football, you have Jim Tressel was at Youngstown State. He goes and wins a national championship at Ohio State. Kalen DeBoer was at a small school. Then he went to Fresno State. Then Washington, head football coach at Alabama. There are plenty of coaches that have come through the ranks at smaller schools that had success. And there's no reason to think Kim Caldwell can't do it. She still has to prove it.
Right.
But just because she came from a smaller level, to me, does not diminish the fact that she's got a chance to be a really good basketball coach.
Yeah, and Danny White kind of fielded similar questions to that. Like, why are we not getting a household name already? And he kind of talked about, Pat Summitt in a way where finding someone like her is going to be a needle in the haystack. And we want somebody that is playing a similar brand to what we're seeing in the Final Four and championship level games. And that's a fast-paced offense. But he also thinks Kim Caldwell has enormous upside.
We cast a very wide net. We talked to basically anybody you could think of or connected to people who you could think of, candidates at all different levels all across the country. There was no stone unturned. The prerequisite for this search, and something that I was unbending on, is how is this person going to bring us back to the top?
They should be like an Alabama football program where you're not having to fight for recruits, right? I kind of think back to when Derrick Henry was there and how deep that running back room was and how deep the quarterback room was with Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts. They should be able to recruit talent like that and also have depth because of the program that they are.
Yeah, I think so. And here's one of the things I think Danny White was looking at. Look, the Lady Vols are behind the 8 ball. They're behind South Carolina and LSU. No question about that. So to play to the same style that those schools play to, how long is it going to take you to catch up?
Yeah.
But if you play with a fast-paced style and you press, look what Josh Heupel did in year 2 in football. He didn't have more talent than Alabama, but he beat them.
Right.
He didn't have more talent than Florida when they played in Knoxville, but he beat them. He went 11-2. In many cases, he won with less talented players. How did he do it? Style of play.
Yep.
So if you're running a fast pace and if you're pressing, you got a chance to beat some teams that maybe are more talented than you. And I think that's what Kim Caldwell is going to have to do maybe the first couple of years she's at Tennessee. Yeah,
and the Lady Vol program the last couple of years has been on the cusp of almost beating similar type giants in the respective sport. And Danny White said that this is not a 3, 4, 5 year, rebuild type of plan. It's immediate. They want to be contending for titles in the SEC and in the NCAA tournament.
We want to give Lady Vol Nation something very exciting to watch. I know what this job means, and I am honored to be here. I will work every day to make sure I take care of this special program and give God his glory in the process.
Danny White and Tennessee are making an investment in a rising talent in Kim Caldwell. And if you're wanting to make your own sound investment, turn to the Aubeck Wells and Dauer Group at Morgan Stanley and tell them Full Disclosure sent you. Now we look over at Tennessee football. The linebackers had a chance to kind of get in front of media, and a big topic of the conversation was Keenan Pey. He was injured all of last season, finally making his time back for his 800th season. Yeah. What kind of experience difference does he bring into the team this year, Jimmy?
A lot. I thought it said a great deal when he transfers in. Now, he's about 26 years old.
And married.
And married. So he transfers in, and he was so impactful and such a great leader, he was elected a captain. That doesn't happen very often. And I thought that was a huge blow when he suffered that bicep injury in game 1 against Virginia last year.
Yep.
I thought that affected the linebacker crew, and I thought it affected the defense overall. With him back in the equation, if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be a very productive player, mature, a leader. There are not many things that an offense can throw at him that he wouldn't have seen. He can also make the defensive signal calls to make sure everybody's lined up properly. I think getting him back is huge for Tennessee. Now, he's also got a new linebackers coach, right?
Yep.
So there's going to be a communication there. I don't think they'll have any problem getting on the same page because it's still going to be the defensive coordinator, Tim Banks' defense. So,
Yes.
But I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. I'm also looking forward to seeing the improvement of Elijah Herring.
Yes.
And some of the young guys. They've got good talent, I think, at linebacker. They just haven't proven it to this point. I think Aaron Carter's another guy that could step in and be a very productive player at linebacker. But Keeley's going to be the leader of this group, and I think you're going to see the linebacker crew might be the most improved area of Tennessee's team from last year to this year.
I like that you mentioned leadership with Peely too, because Coach Enge, while he's new to the Tennessee program, that is his philosophy. He wants it to be a player-led team, and who else can you look to than Keenan Pey, who already has 1 year under his belt with the system, coming back with like a renewed sense of energy and enthusiasm because he's not injured right now, and kind of getting his first swing at things, and the team really kind of relying on Keenan Pey. He even has the nickname of Uncle Grandpa. I mean, apparently he came up with his own nickname, but I don't know how you marry the both of those, but he seems to be embracing the nickname.
Yeah, obviously I'm older, and it's kind of the joke of the room because we also have a heavily young side room, so it's funny.
The coaching staff like what they've seen out of him, so I expect a lot from him. I don't know if he's going to be an all-SEC player, but I think he's going to be on the cusp of that once people see him play. I think he's every bit as good as what Aaron Beasley was. And Beasley led the team in tackles a couple of years ago. He was a really good football player who was able to play the Mike linebacker position and the will linebacker, middle linebacker, outside linebacker. But I think Peely's going to settle in at middle linebacker and be the guy that directs the defense. And not only that, not only is he going to help the linebacking crew, but he's going to help the front four. He's going to help the secondary as well.
You see him move around, he definitely gets your attention, because he is one of those linebackers that you love because he can run fast and hit hard. He is very explosive. He can get off the ground. He can bend his pads. He can get low. So he does everything that you want a linebacker to do. And you combine that with him kind of being Uncle Grandpa, it's awesome.
It's like Coach Enge always says. He says leadership is best coupled with action. So I'm just taking the opportunities when it's time to lead. When it's time to follow. When it's time to pick up one of your teammates, pick them up. And then when it's time to maybe push your teammates a little further, make sure you're pushing your teammates.
I think he's going to be the glue to this defense.
And it's interesting that you talk about how he's going to kind of be that middle linebacker, because Coach Enge, he wants them to be like an Aaron Beasley where they can play the Mike, they can play the Will, and that's tough when you're learning the playbook in a new lens where you're needing to know different terminology, where to be, when, and why. And I think having someone like a Keenan Pey could maybe help the guys understand that, so the younger guys like Dave and Hobbs aren't making repetitive mistakes, whether up front or out on the back of the linebacker group.
That's something that's very big for us to make sure that you are interchangeable. We tell our guys that you have to be what's called a dual linebacker. You've got to know both scenarios, because what we want to be able to do is in any given scenario, get the best guys on the field. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're recruiting. We're making sure that both guys can have the opportunity or the ability to be able to do both jobs.
One of those spots, a will linebacker, you're going to be asked to be in coverage a lot. I don't know if Peely's skilled enough to do that. We haven't seen him enough.
Yeah.
But I do know that he's a Mike linebacker. And my guess is they would probably try to keep him there and rotate some other people at the will position. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do think that you got a stalwart right there in the middle who I think is going to be really valuable to this defense. And I think by the end of the year, we're going to be talking about what a special player he was.
And hopefully so, because it is his last year of eligibility, and he feels like family, that he's found family here on Rocky Top. And there's been plenty of news going on as of Tuesday and this week, and leading up to the scrimmage game on Saturday. We'll talk more about their spring game on Saturday, coming up on Friday at 3 p.m. for our next episode. It'll be same time, same place, Friday at 3 o'clock right here on YouTube or on your podcast platforms. But thank you for listening. Please send us a like. Please send us a subscribe, a click, and we will see you guys on Friday.